RT is back in Austin, Texas, catching up with radio host and documentary filmmaker Alex Jones. Alex, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you.
Last time we were here in your studios was a couple of months after the inauguration. Now America has marked a year since it elected Barack Obama. What promises of change have actually materialized?
From the day he was elected, before he even took office, we knew because of his advisors, being people from the Clinton and Bush administration before him, that he was going to break all his promises. But he's gone back on his word
in our history.
Even worse than we thought he would.
In 2 wars.
He took 50,000 troops out of Iraq, but put contractors in. He has escalated the troop surge in Afghanistan by over 30,000, and he's now said he's going to send an additional 40,000 to over 340,000 U.S. coalition and Afghan troops total there, outnumbering the supposed Taliban 12-1. So he lied about the war. In fact, he's a bigger warmonger than George Bush in many respects. But again, Obama's just a puppet. He's carrying out the policies of the Anglo-American establishment, of the military-industrial complex. He's giving that left cover. He also said that he was going to make the White House and government totally transparent. He's made who visits the White House secret. He said that he was going to end the process of rendition, secret arrest, secret torture. He's actually expanded that to indefinite detention, so worse than George W. Bush, if it's actually possible. He said he was going to bring the big banks to justice, and he's actually opened the floodgates to even more corruption by our Western oligarchs. So Obama has taken all the previous corruption to a new level. In less than a year in office, this is official numbers, Barack Obama has spent more money than all presidents before him.
Your latest film is Fall of the Republic. Do you really believe the United States could be on its way to collapse?
The United States, if it's going to fall, will only fall from within. And yes, the globalists are not mismanaging things. They want to bankrupt the U.S. They want to bring it down to third world status so they can further loot the economy. This is stated in their own documents. So these guys are holding our economy hostage, and they want a weakened America. They've used us as the muscle for their empire. They've used our tax money to fund their empire. Now they're completing their empire, and they want to move the power structure away from the United States to China and Europe.
You often call upon the American people to rise up and save their country, a revolution basically. Do you think this is a good idea, and what could come out of it? And how could it really happen in the United States?
Our republic is falling. That's why I've made the film Fall of the Republic. I'm calling for a revolution of ideas, a renaissance, an awakening to true free market, not this phony, crony, mutant form of capitalism that's not free market, that's really a oligopoly or a monopoly of the elite. I'm calling for a peaceful revolution under the Bill of Rights and Constitution, the people's right in the Declaration of Independence to take their government back when it becomes oppressive and tyrannical. And by every yardstick, by every measure, we have a tyrannical, oppressive government that violates the Bill of Rights and Constitution, that violates our laws, and that is basically being used as tools, as private interest, to loot the people. I don't want to have a military coup. That would probably just turn into some other form of tyranny or fascism.
You've compared the current situation in America to George Orwell's novel 1984. Is Big Brother really watching Americans, and how?
Big Brother is watching Americans, and Big Brother wants people to know. They've gone in the last few years from denying that the National Security Agency is spying on Americans without warrants to saying, hey, we're listening to your cell phones, we're reading all your emails. The NSA is building snooping centers all over the country, admitting they, quote, may shut the internet down during emergencies or during crises. There's open discussions of restricting free speech in the United States, not free speech in the streets, but free speech online, free speech in newspapers. The American people have laid down for a long time, but I notice as the system tries to squeeze us and push us around, people are really starting to wake up and get angry. And so the globalists are pushing it a little too far.
In your film, Fall of the Republic, you mention the possibility of a union being formed between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Who would be interested in this, and could this ever really happen?
A North American Union was formed in 2005 at Baylor University in Waco, Texas. They signed a secret treaty. Several years later, through Freedom of Information Act requests, we were able to get the minutes of that meeting and the Banff, Canada meeting, where the Security and Prosperity Partnership openly announced We're going to use terrorism as a pretext to take over. We're going to use the threat of man-made global warming, which is manufactured, as a pretext to restrict everybody's resources and tax the people and give the money to the offshore banks that we're deep in debt to. And so we're already in a North American Union by stealth. Americans will not be told until later that we're really under a North American Union. And the reason the elites want us under this North American Union is they can bypass the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, due process. By giving regulatory power to private corporations and to unelected bureaucracies, they can remove laws. They can set up the new structure in a way that gives them more power.
In your film, you also talk about the economic crisis being part of a bigger strategy, a bigger plan. Can you explain this to us?
Absolutely. The globalist-owned documents clearly state that they have engineered the global financial crisis as a pretext to bring in a new system. Private banks that make up the private Federal Reserve and Bank of England system, like Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, Chase, and others, are on record that some of these banks were actually engineering the housing crises to get the bailout, to get all this unlimited taxpayer money in the name of fixing the mortgages. And then it came out that they never even used that money for the mortgages. They used it to buy gold. They used it to buy real estate. They used it to buy companies and media and power. And so clearly they need to implode the economy so that they're cash rich when everybody else is cash poor, so they can come in and consolidate the world economy and also threaten the population. They can threaten the population and say, if you don't give the banks even more power and control, if you don't give the IMF this new power to levy carbon taxes, if you don't let us set up our new world order, we're going to have a deeper depression. So they've got a gun to our head saying, you've got to submit to us, give us all the power, or you'll be destroyed. But it's the very same central banks that engineered the economic crises that are now offering us their solution.
How do you think the millions of people who are homeless and jobless are feeling about being a means for a bigger goal?
The people know they're being raped. The people know they're being robbed. And they're very, very angry. And they're angry at both political parties. And there's a sense of desperation because no matter what we do, the same corrupt elite just continue to rob us, continue to steal from us, continue to destroy our economy by design. This is a controlled demolition of our economy.
Are you expecting an eventual collapse of the dollar?
Yes, we are seeing an engineered, incremental collapse of the dollar. It's not Europe and China and Russia and the Middle East who are destroying the dollar. It is the private central banks that control the United States and England. They have made the decision to slowly kill the dollar because on the way down, as the dollar's devalued, they can come in with all of their assets, all their gold, all of their foreign currencies that in some cases are worth 2 to 1 and buy up all of our infrastructure.
We've seen an outbreak of swine flu hysteria over the last couple of months. In some places, I've seen masks being sold for up to $8 a piece. Who is profiting from all of this, and do you think this is all a hoax?
We know that the current H1N1 media blitz is a hoax. 3-4 months before the scare even began, I went on air and I said they're planning a flu hoax. Now, I don't know if it's going to be a real flu or if it's going to be weak or if it's going to be deadly. All I know is they're using this as a pretext to come in with control. And the globalists are doing this in Mexico. They're doing this in Ukraine. They're doing this in Poland. They're using this as a model to come in and clamp down with federal control. Those federal governments themselves controlled by the offshore banks. Also, the Boston Globe reported that $7 billion extra has been made by vaccine makers just in the last month out of this scare. From a flu that's killed 1/5 statistically this far into the flu season of what the regular seasonal flu kills worldwide or in the United States every year. And a lot of top virologists are also on record reporting they've looked at this virus and they believed it was manufactured in a lab. It is completely novel. It's the perfect smokescreen to get their assets in place for a bigger police state crackdown coming up next year.
Let's talk about the Fed, the issue of whether or not the Federal Reserve should be audited. Why do you think so many people in Washington, D.C. are resisting this?
The private Federal Reserve that we didn't have until 1913 has never been audited, and it's extremely secretive. If you audit the Fed, you will find out the details of all the corruption they're involved in, and this will result, and the Federal Reserve Chairman has admitted this, he says if you audit the Fed, you'll destroy the Fed. And so they've basically threatened to institute a depression if anyone tries to audit it. The beginning of the end of the Fed has begun because the people have now discovered that Republicans and Democrats don't matter. They come and go. The private Federal Reserve, the private banking cartel, it is the true power behind the throne, and it's being revealed as the true power.
In your film, you say, and I quote, Obama's allegiance is only to his offshore masters. So what should the American people who are putting their hopes in him be preparing themselves for?
They should understand that Obama is a puppet who only serves his offshore masters, just as Bush was, and that they need to stop following leaders and start rediscovering our heritage. Get involved. Take over your counties, your cities, your states peacefully. Say no to the illegitimate federal takeover, because the feds themselves in Washington are nothing but puppets to these offshore interests. Break the spell. Awaken. Say no. And I will tell you, saying that, I do risk my life. The good news is they can't just kill me and shut me up. If they kill me, and I get a lot of death threats from these people, that will only underline and highlight everything I've said.
Do you really sometimes fear for your life because of the things you say?
Sure. Years ago, I was physically attacked and told to shut up about all this, but I didn't shut up, and I get death threats, and my family gets threats, and a lot of other things happen. I passed the point of no return a long time ago, and all I've got is my integrity and who I am. I know I'm right, and I know I'm on the right side of history, and I'm not stopping.
Alex Jones, thank you for your time with us.
Thank you for spending time.